Imagine waking up this week to headlines not based on rumors or speculation, but on hard evidence, confirmed missile launches, official statements, and diplomatic warnings that leave no room for doubt. In the past few days, Russia has put its most advanced intercontinental ballistic missile, the Yars, on public display with a series of exercises explicitly designed to send a message to NATO and the United States. Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader has openly declared readiness to respond to any new military attacks, while European governments and the International Atomic Energy Agency confirm Tehran's uranium enrichment levels are approaching weapons grade. Unlike the viral countdowns and secret attack rumors we've dismantled in recent videos, these developments are real, verifiable, and loaded with consequences. So what's actually happening, and what does it mean for the fragile balance of global security? Stay with me, because by the end of this video you'll have the facts and context you need, drawn straight from the world's most credible sources. There's no hype here. This isn't about feeding social media panic or capitalizing on speculation. If you've watched our previous breakdowns on so-called attack deadlines, you know we cut through the noise and focus on signals that truly matter. Today's signals aren't chatter, they're actions, documented and acknowledged by the very organizations at the center of world security. Let's break down exactly what's unfolding, how we know it's real, and why these moves could reshape the coming months. And along the way, I'll show you the patterns that separate bluff from true escalation, patterns most news feeds and YouTube channels simply miss. Let's start with the biggest story of the week, confirmed by both United 24 Media and Reuters. Russia has staged large-scale nuclear force readiness drills, featuring the RS-24 Yars intercontinental ballistic missile, a weapon with the capacity to reach nearly any point on the globe. Unlike previous routine maneuvers, this round of exercises was announced in advance by the Russian Defense Ministry and covered in detail by international press, signaling that Moscow wanted this display seen and understood by Western audiences. The Yars missile is a cornerstone of Russia's modern nuclear arsenal, a road-mobile intercontinental ballistic missile capable of carrying multiple independently targetable nuclear warheads, MIRVs, making it much harder to intercept or neutralize in the event of a crisis. According to United 24 Media and corroborated by satellite imagery analyzed by Jane's Defense Weekly, these drills involved mobile Yars launchers traversing highways, forests, and rural regions, supported by convoys of security forces, logistics vehicles, and advanced electronic countermeasure units designed to protect the missile columns from surveillance or attack. Simultaneously, Russian strategic bomber patrols and mobile ground units participated in parallel exercises, simulating the full spectrum of a nuclear force response. What's critical is that these were not snap drills meant to surprise Western observers. They were declared, scheduled, and even featured controlled media coverage, underscoring the intent to communicate a message of strength and operational readiness. Russian officials explicitly stated the purpose was to test the nuclear triad's ability to respond to a sudden external threat, language that directly echoes the most dangerous periods of the Cold War, when both superpowers maintained hair-trigger alert levels and the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. Western intelligence analysts, including those cited by Reuters and the BBC, confirm that while Russia has conducted similar drills in past years, the combination of public visibility, deliberate messaging, and timing sets these maneuvers apart. They coincided not only with increased Western arms deliveries to Ukraine, but also with new NATO battle groups deployed in Poland, the Baltics, and Romania, meaning this was a choreographed signal sent at a moment of maximum geopolitical friction. NATO's own statement, reported by BBC News, called the exercises an unmistakable signal of deterrence, a clear warning to any nation considering intervention in Russia's sphere of influence or escalation in the Ukrainian conflict. Russian state media amplified the message further, with coverage highlighting the Yars' technical superiority, its capability to punch through any missile defense, and the seamless integration of mobile and silo-based launch platforms, a reminder to adversaries that Russia's retaliatory strike capability is flexible and survivable, not limited to fixed or easily targeted sites. Here's what makes this escalation so significant. First, the Yars system is not just a relic or a test bed, it's a core part of Russia's current strategic deterrent. Unlike the aging Topol missiles, the Yars is roadmobile, harder to target, and built for rapid redeployment in response to a developing crisis. According to a defense analysis by The Diplomat, Russia's 2025 force doctrine places mobile missile launchers at the center of their survivable retaliatory capability, meaning they're designed to endure a first strike and still respond with devastating force. That means these drills aren't just for show, they're meant to demonstrate real-world readiness and flexibility, sending a signal to both adversaries and domestic audiences that Russian nuclear forces can move quickly and unpredictably, even under pressure. And the timing matters. These exercises were launched precisely as both the US and European Union announced expanded military aid packages to Ukraine, and as NATO was conducting its own joint maneuvers in the Baltic states and the Black Sea. It's not just saber rattling or empty theater. In the words of one former US Stratcom advisor interviewed by Reuters, this is Russia signaling that it can escalate, and that its strategic deterrent is not theoretical, it's operational, and it's mobile. For anyone watching the slow-moving chess match in Eastern Europe, these signals are impossible to ignore, and they mark a shift in the tone and seriousness of the current standoff. Mini anticipation. But there's a subtlety in these moves that most headlines miss. We'll get to that pattern in a moment, but first, let's shift to another pressure point, the rapidly evolving nuclear situation in Iran. According to Reuters and the International Atomic Energy Agency, Iran's nuclear program has reached a critical threshold, with enrichment levels now reportedly at 60%, and capable of reaching weapons grade in a matter of weeks if leadership gives the order. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, speaking directly to state media and reported by Al Jazeera and Deutsche Welle, declared that Iran is ready to respond with force if there are any new attacks on its facilities or leadership. This comes after a series of Israeli strikes on Iranian military and nuclear-related infrastructure, none of which, according to sources including The Guardian, eliminated Tehran's core stockpiles or disabled their capacity for rapid restart. European governments, especially France, Germany, and the UK, have pressed for new diplomatic channels, but also signaled readiness for stronger sanctions and, in some cases, direct intervention if Iran crosses the line to weapons grade. The New York Times notes that U.S. satellite surveillance has recorded increased movement at Fordow and Natanz, two of Iran's key enrichment sites, including defensive deployments and hardening of underground infrastructure. Why does this matter beyond the headlines? Because it shows a convergence of tripwires, points where one more incident could trigger rapid escalation, not just regionally but globally. Iran's enrichment progress is not a rumor. It's confirmed by independent inspectors and acknowledged by Western intelligence. The risk isn't just that Iran could build a bomb, but that the very act of moving toward weapons-grade enrichment might provoke Israel or even a US-led coalition to launch a major preventive strike. Such a strike could then trigger Iranian retaliation across the region, targeting US bases, shipping in the Gulf, and even civilian infrastructure in allied countries. This is not hypothetical. According to Jane's Defense Weekly, Iran has moved new missile units into western Iraq and southern Syria, positioning them within range of multiple US and allied targets. When you connect the dots, official enrichment data, public threats, and visible redeployments, it's clear we are not dealing with media exaggeration, but with a real, documented escalation cycle. Let's tie this back to Russia. In a detailed analysis by United 24 Media and Foreign Affairs, security experts suggest that Moscow's show of nuclear readiness is not just about Europe, but also about shaping perceptions in the Middle East and Asia. By demonstrating that its strategic deterrent is on alert, Russia signals to Tehran, and to Beijing for that matter, that it remains a player capable of influencing multiple theaters at once. The Diplomat notes that such messaging is carefully timed. As Western attention splits between Ukraine, Taiwan, and Iran, Moscow wants to remind adversaries and allies alike that it can move the strategic chessboard if pushed. The key insight here, as highlighted by BBC and Stratfor, is that simultaneous crises multiply the risks of miscalculation. When three or more major flashpoints are heating up, Ukraine, the Persian Gulf, Taiwan, the chance of an accidental escalation or a chain reaction sparked by a single misread signal rises sharply. So how can we tell if these moves are real signals or just another round of posturing? Here's the pattern most casual observers miss. Watch not just for public threats, but for changes in readiness and movement. When Russia moves mobile launchers out of storage and runs open drills in multiple regions, when NATO responds with quiet redeployments of air defense units and increased AWACS flights, and when Iran physically reinforces its nuclear sites and readies missile units, these are all canaries in the coal mine. Unlike rumors of a September 1st attack or the viral talk of a 49-day decapitation strike, these steps are confirmed by independent observers, satellite data, and statements from both sides. Reuters, United 24 Media, and BBC all report that over the past week, there has been a marked uptick in military communications traffic, supply chain movements, and back-channel diplomatic talks. This is what escalation looks like in real time, not a countdown, but a slow, deliberate tightening of the noose. Let's pause and pull back for a recap, because at this point you might be asking, how much of this is just for show? When do we know it's the real deal? The answer is all about context and confirmation. When multiple credible sources report the same moves, when open source intelligence, like satellite imagery and on-the-ground observers, back up official statements, and when those moves are followed by diplomatic shifts or economic signals like sudden changes in oil exports, sanctions, or financial market jitters, you know you're seeing more than theater. Right now, all those elements are lining up. Here's a question for you. Given these confirmed developments, do you think the West is prepared to handle a multi-front crisis, or is the system already stretched too thin? Leave your thoughts below, and as we move into the next section, I'll break down what patterns to watch for in the coming weeks. Pattern to watch. According to Stratfor and Janes, the most telling signals of true escalation will be unannounced deployments, like rapid airlift movements, sudden changes in the status of U.S. carrier groups, or mass alerts to embassies and expat communities. In the Middle East, watch for Iran to test short and medium-range missiles in live-fire exercises, which they often publicize as defensive drills, but are in reality rehearsals for regional strikes. In Eastern Europe, a key warning would be the forward movement of heavy artillery, the setup of field hospitals, or the laying of new defensive minefields along borders. The BBC recently reported on new satellite imagery showing fresh trenches near the Belarus-Ukraine border, corroborated by independent OSINT accounts. These are the signs that go far beyond words. They mean resources are being put in place for contingencies. Now let's shift to the bigger picture. Why are these developments all converging now? According to Foreign Affairs and BBC analysts, we're witnessing the real-world test of overstretch, the risk that Western alliances cannot maintain focus and deterrence on multiple fronts at once. The U.S. is ramping up support to Ukraine, holding joint exercises in the Pacific with Japan and Australia, and at the same time dealing with a potential nuclear crisis in the Middle East. For Russia and Iran, this is an opportunity to probe, escalate, and test for weaknesses. The logic is simple. If the West is busy everywhere, it might respond slowly or inconsistently somewhere. And as the pattern of the past year shows, the adversaries are increasingly coordinated in timing their moves. This brings us to the most important strategic insight, one you won't find in most news coverage. In an age where rumors spread faster than facts, the key is to focus on actions, not words. Credible escalation is always backed by resources, visible movements, and confirmed readiness. And as the lines between warning and action blur, the need for clear-eyed analysis and calm preparedness becomes more urgent. Whether or not these crises boil over in the coming weeks, the risks are real and rising, and only by staying informed and attentive to the real signals, backed by facts, not hype, can we avoid being caught off guard. Long-term outlook. As we move forward, expect these patterns to continue. Russia will likely maintain high-profile drills and sharpen its nuclear rhetoric as leverage in negotiations over Ukraine and NATO expansion. Iran will continue to balance brinkmanship with diplomacy, pushing its nuclear program to the edge while seeking to avoid outright war. For the West, the challenge is to manage simultaneous crises without losing strategic coherence. The next few weeks will be critical, and every new deployment, diplomatic shift, or confirmed military movement will matter more than any headline or rumor. If you've made it this far, you're not just scrolling through headlines, you're here for real analysis and real signals. Subscribe to Safety Zone so you never have to rely on rumor or panic to understand what's really happening. And drop a comment. Which of these developments worries you most? And what signals do you watch for when the world heats up? Let's build a community of clarity, not confusion. Stay sharp, and see you in the next update.